girl who doesn't need a last name.
Sometimes people would criticize me because they felt that I didn't do enough for race or racism. I try to tell stories that allow people to see themselves in the lives of other people.
Do you still ever experience at this elevation racism?
I've experienced it. I think the higher up you go in the chain of capitalism, people don't expect you to be sitting at certain board table.
You sense that?
You sense it and you know it.
Plus,
they go, cut, cut! What is she doing? Oh my God, I'm like terrified.
Oprah is next.
Larry King now.
That's the intro. Our guest is, you may not know her, is Oprah, one of the few people in the world you don't have to say the last name. And she stars in a brilliant new film. Now, often I don't extol movies on this program, and I tried not to refer to myself, but I saw The Butler, and The Butler is the best civil rights movie I've ever seen. One of the great dramas I've ever seen, one of the great human dramas, with an incredible performance by you. When did you know you could act?
I'm gonna sit up straighter for that.
When did you know you could act? I mean, you were a broadcaster. I go back to Baltimore with you.
Yeah, we go way back. I didn't know I could act, even in The Color Purple, Larry. I had taken the Stanislavski acting books with me to Monroe, North Carolina, where we were shooting The Color Purple in 1985. Because I couldn't balance acting with, I knew instinctively that you gotta figure out a way to let that character be truthful. But how do you do that if you're acting? And the word act was hanging me up. And I wasn't sure I could do it because I'd been an orator before, all through high school. I grew up doing Sojourner Truth and Fannie Lou Hamer's speeches as a little girl. Speaking. At public speaking. So I knew I could do that. I knew I could do dramatizations, which is very different than acting, going into the interior. So I guess I really didn't know I could do it until that famous scene in The Color Purple where she comes through the cornfields and says, "You told Harpo to beat me all my life. I had to fight. I had to fight my uncles. I had to fight my brothers." That scene. I had to fight my cousins. I never knew I had to fight in my own house. I did that in one take.
Why didn't you do more films?
Because I had a day job. And actually, after Beloved, you know, I was on the Larry King show for promoting Beloved, and that was 15 years ago. I hadn't done it in 15 years. And I put my heart and soul into that. I was a producer for that. I really wanted that story to be told. And then it was not successful. I didn't understand the whole, I think we got beat that weekend by something called Chucky. I didn't know what Chucky was. And then I remember saying to my chef, after they say, you know, you lost in Chucky, you got beaten by Chucky, I say, make some macaroni and cheese. And I went into a macaroni and cheese.
Have you gotten movie offers over the years?
Yes, I have gotten movie offers over the years, but I gave up the dream because it would be like you, the daily,
I've been in a lot of movies, but I play myself and you're in and out in one day.
That's right. So if you're going to commit to something other than playing yourself, because I think it's hard to play yourself.
Yeah, well, you gotta act.
Because who is yourself?
I know.
Because in yourself, you don't have to act. You got to find out who people think yourself is. Anyway, I'd given up the dream of acting because the day job had taken over, and I was really content with that and said, oh, well, that wasn't supposed to be my life.
So how did The Butler come around?
Because Lee Daniels had been calling me about other films and sending me scripts and saying he really, really, really wanted to work with me. And I wanted to work with him after, obviously, seeing Precious. I stepped up to help promote Precious and say, you know, just because I wanted as many eyes on it as possible. And I wanted the opportunity to work with him, but he called me at the worst time. I was going through the building of OWN and all of the, you know, Michigas and Schadenfreude of that. And I said, Lee, you just couldn't have asked me at a worse time. I'm just trying to keep my head above water here. I am just trying to dig myself out of a hole. I got all this work to do with the network and finding the right people and all that. He goes, I don't care about that. I don't care about that because I'm ready to go with this movie. So he said, think about it, think about it. what he said was, I'm going to shoot you out. You know, that means I'm going to come in, I'm going to let you come in, and I'm going to shoot all your stuff, and you'll be out, and it won't take much of your time.
So how long will it take?
3 months in and out. You know why? Because in the middle of it, there was a big hurricane down in...
Where'd you shoot?
In New Orleans. So we had to stop for that. And I was in between shooting Gloria. I'd go into the Gloria character, come out, go interview Rihanna. Go into the Gloria character, come out, and go interview Jason Russell, go interview Usher. So it was a challenging time, but I'm now glad I did it. I finally said yes because of the story. I am a product of the civil rights movement, and there are so few stories that I, strongly believe that if you don't know who you are, if you don't understand your history, then you have no idea of what your future and the possibility of future can be.
When I took my boys to see 42, Jackie Robinson, which I knew Jackie very well, interviewed him, and saw his first game.
Wow.
But I introduced, they're little baseball players, I introduced them to that film, but in that film, they learned about civil rights.
That's right.
This movie, The Butler, is going to teach a lot of people. I know how hard it was, but they're going to doubly know how hard it was.
You know, the other night we came out of a screening, and there were some young people, like, in their 30s, saying, did that stuff really happen? And I just went, yeah. That stuff and so much more stuff happened. But, what is beautiful to see is, this is an amazing country that we live in. That Butler film starts with the Butler sitting in the White House reflecting on his life and the whole
beautiful opening.
Beautiful opening, that whole lynching scene. So you begin the movie with a lynching and you end it with Obama. That is really the arc of this country. And for that to happen in one man's lifetime, I know it's popular for us to talk about all the changes that need to come and we're not where we need to be, but look at how far we actually have come, that you can, in the span of one man's life, Eugene Allen, for whom the story is told, have that. I love that the Butler himself, Eugene Allen, is quoted as saying that, he went to the inauguration of Obama after being there for 8 presidents from Eisenhower, and said, standing there watching Obama being put into office, I never dreamed that we could even dream of such a day. And he was in the White House with all of those presidents.
We'll be back with more with Oprah right after this. You were in the crowd in Chicago when Obama won that night. I remember that.
Yes. I started to dream that dream of Obama when I first saw him at the Democratic National Convention. When I saw him, I felt something. I felt a fire. I felt, when I saw him the first time, having seen, remember the autobiography of Miss Jane Pittman?
Of course.
And Cicely Tyson?
Cicely Tyson, just did a Broadway thing.
Yes, and when she's holding the babies and says, we look at each one of them and we wonder, is this the one, is this the one? And when I saw him, I went, whoa, I believe that's the one.
This woman you play in The Butler is an extraordinary lady. She has depth, she drinks too much,
we took some liberties.
She defends her husband and gets mad at him, gets mad at her son, and then throws him out of the house when the husband throws. There are so many emotional, pivotal scenes.
But she is every woman. Larry, one of the things I tried to do all those years on the Oprah show, sometimes people would criticize me because they felt that I didn't do enough for race or racism. But this is what I always understood, that for me, my role and my goal in life is to open people's hearts. That's what I do, is I try to tell stories that allow people to see themselves in the lives of other people. And for me, it was always more powerful and effective to do a show, for example, on single parents raising their children, and just on the panel of parents, to have a Black father, and to show the photographs or images of that father putting his child to bed and reading a story at night. That, to me, is more powerful than doing a story on, let's talk about Black fathers who are raising their children. Because the goal, for me, is to show that we are all more alike than different, and that in our humanity, in our ability to express our humanness, we are the same. So when you see a father putting his child to bed at night and reading stories, and that man is black, and you know that's what your husband does, and that's what you do, you feel a sense of connection and humanity.
Oh, I
you know what I'm
salute
saying?
you.
You see?
How did you approach her, though?
I was so nervous about stepping back into this role of acting, having not picked up the instrument in 15 years, that I called Susan Batson. Susan Batson, who's an acting coach who's worked with a lot of the greats, and I was just happy she took my call. Like, will you please come and do a session with me? Because I was so worried that I wouldn't be able to cry on cue. Because you know, those years when I was doing The Color Purple, I couldn't cry on cue. There was a scene where I'd been in The Color Purple. There's the Harpo character, my husband, in the juke joint. And I was I was so excited to be in The Color Purple that I went every day to set, Larry, even if I didn't have a role to play. I would just be there watching. And I was there watching and crying, just as a viewer, in the background. And Steven saw me and he said, I like that. I'm gonna turn the camera around this afternoon. I want you to do just that. And I went, do what? And he says, that you just did. And I didn't know how to do that. I did not have the skill, the technical skill to do that on cue. And there was a moment where he and Alan Davio, the cinematographer, they're rolling the camera's on me, and I'm supposed to be crying, and I couldn't do it. So all night long I cried because I couldn't cry.
Did you know you were making a great movie?
Mine was the first shot the first day. I was the first person up. I'd never even been to a Universal tour. I had no idea how a movie worked. So I walk in to the juke joint, first scene, first day, and I walk in and I'm looking for the camera because I have been a student of television my whole life. I walk in and I look for the camera and I say, how you doing, Miss Seeley? And Alan Davio and Steven yell, they go, cut! Cut! What is she doing? Oh my God, I'm like terrified. And they said, because Steven comes in, he says, what are you doing? And I said, I was just saying the line. He goes, but why are you looking in the camera? I was saying, well, aren't I supposed to look in the camera? He goes, no, you're supposed to look at Miss Seeley, because that is who you're talking to. So that was how little I knew about making movies.
Over the years, many actors have told me they never liked to see themselves up on the screen. It was embarrassing. And they'll always say, I should have did this.
Yeah.
How did you view that?
That's exactly what happened to me the first time I've seen the second time. Roger Ebert said this to me years ago, that it takes about 5 years before you will actually, he said that to me when I did Color Purple, that it'll take you 5 years before you can see. He said, if I were you, I wouldn't look at it for another 5 years. And I actually didn't look at it for another 10.
How about seeing yourself in The Butler?
In The Butler, I couldn't see myself. I just was like, oh God, that's so wrong, and why did I do that? And I should have done that, and I should have.
You were self-critical.
I was very self-critical the first time. All I could see and feel was, gee, this movie has been elevated to a place, it's bigger than I thought. And I think that happened because of Lee Daniels and because of Forrest, and obviously because of all of our contribution, but because of the vision for the film to be bigger than the story, than the life of one person.
More with Oprah right after these words. Was Forrest cast before you?
No, I was cast before Forrest.
Did you have a selection in him? Did you have a say?
Well, I wouldn't say, well, we were trying to find someone that would partner with me that would be realistic and that we could have a chemistry. So what actually happened was I auditioned with several people that day, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He was the 6th person.
All of them well-known actors?
All of them pretty well-known, yeah. And a couple of them not from this country. But I auditioned, and he was this, I think, 6th person that came in. He was the only Academy Award winner. He came in, and Lee was saying, oh gosh, we're gonna ask an Academy Award winner to audition. And I said, it's not even like an audition, it's just to feel like, does this work? And before he finished, I looked at Lee, and Lee looked at me, and he pulled me into the kitchen, because we were at the Chateau Maman, in one of those little suites. And Lee goes, I think it's him, don't you? And I go, it's definitely him. And so we say, would you be my husband?
Where did they do the White House scenes?
They created a house down there in New Orleans.
You've been to the White House.
Didn't it look good?
Looked good. I thought it was in the White House.
Yeah, they did a really great job. We shot all of that in New Orleans on some of the hottest days, wearing polyester. I was saying, "We shall overcome polyester. We shall overcome polyester."
Okay, Oprah. The key question.
Yeah.
What was it like on film to die?
Oh, that's so good.
I'm not taking anything away, but the characters grow old, and it takes you through their life. So I'm not taking anything away from you to know.
Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! But she did. She died. She died the day before Obama was elected. Did you know that?
Oh well, it's sort of in the film. I remember they went to the rally.
Yeah.
And she had her sign.
She died November 3rd, 2008. She died November 3rd. 2008.
Was that a tough scene to do?
Yeah, because you can overdo it dying and you can overdo it being drunk. You can really overkill. They told me from the beginning, Susan Batson had said, people who smoke will know a smoker, so you got to train yourself to do
absolutely.
that. Yeah, and people who drink will know a drunk, and I guess people who've died will know if you did that well or not. So, no, you can, most people overdo death. You can make death so, you think death is going to be this big dramatic thing. And coming to the space, I didn't like to die, actually. I didn't
You don't want to die, do you?
Well, I actually think death is going to be quite a surprise. You know that movie, The Piano?
Yeah.
When Holly Hunter goes underneath and the piano drags her down, the first thing she says, death. What a surprise.
You don't tell me you're not looking forward.
I'm not looking forward to it, but,
Like
we're not going to get out of it.
Woody Allen said, I'm not afraid of it, I just don't want to be there.
Don't want to be there when it happens, yeah.
Do you still ever experience at this elevation racism?
Other than on Twitter, when some nitwit gets on and uses the N-word, nobody's going to do that to my face. But I've experienced it. I think the higher up you go in the chain of capitalism, you experience it. Sexism, huge, because the expectation for who you are and what you should be doing as a woman and as a black woman, people, you're breaking new ground, and so. People don't expect you to be sitting at certain board tables. People don't expect you to be able to break down certain barriers. They don't expect you. So
you sense that.
You sense it and you know it. I had a really interesting incident. I didn't say anything about it because several years ago I was in France and I had an incident at a store there and I complained about which I knew was clearly racism, and. Because it only happens so often where I am directly confronted with it, where it's so obviously in your face. Andre Walker over there, is my hairdresser and has done my hair for years, he and I, years ago, this was in the late 90s or something, wasn't it, Andre? We had gone to see Serafina, and we're like, Serafina! And we come out of the play, and we're going down the street, and I tried to get into... I saw a sweater in the window. This was on Madison Avenue. And they wouldn't open the door. And I am not the person who pulls the race card. So I am just so like, wow, gee, I wonder God, do they see us out here? So we went across the street. This is before cell phones were everywhere. Remember, Andre? And we called to say, are you open? Yes, we're open. Okay, coming over. Just crossed the street, didn't let us in. We had seen on the way across the street these two white women go in the store. And suddenly it dawns on the both of us. Andre and I were saying like, oh my God, I think we're having a racist moment. And it was. I later called back to the store after flying back. This was on Madison, after flying back to Chicago and asking the person, well, I was by your store today and I wasn't let in, and they said that they had been robbed by two black people the week before, and they were afraid to open the door. And I mean, the fact that they actually admitted that was so striking. And I said I was coming in to buy this sweater, and they said, well, we'd like to give you this sweater for free. And I go, keep the sweater, whatever. Just recently, I was in Zurich, and I was at a store. Now, this was last week. I was in Zurich, and I had gone there for Tina Turner's wedding, and I'd gone out to go shopping, and I'm in a store, name brand store, and I say to the woman, I'm by myself, absolutely nobody else with me, and I say to the woman, I would like to see that bag on the shelf. And she says, no, that one's too expensive. I'll show you this one. She did, and she proceeded to tell me about the bag and how the bag was created for Jennifer Aniston, and it was and that you should want this one. And I said, no, but I really want to see the black one there, the black one, which I think it was, lizard or alligator or something, and I'm sure it was expensive. And she said, no. You don't want
How does that make you feel?
I didn't see that. Well, I wanted to laugh at it. I wanted to create a Pretty Woman moment and go and come back and buy everything and say, big mistake. But then I thought she'd get a commission, so let's not do that.
From where you came.
Yeah.
How does it feel to have monetarily, materialistically everything?
Yeah.
How does that feel? I mean, obviously you have an absence of worry in a key area that most people worry about is economically. You don't think about it?
I do think about it. First of all, I live in a space of gratitude, and that's just not some rhetoric,
Baloney.
This morning, every morning, I prepare myself for the day. So I listen to some form of either spiritual song, or I read some kind of spiritual passage. I read something called The Bowl of Sake, which is written by a Sufi master, or I'll read a daily word. And then I meditate. And I do a gratitude journal. And whether I'm doing it electronically or whether I'm, writing in my little journal that I don't carry the journal around if I'm going to be on long extended vacations, because once I left the journal in a hotel, and God only knows what you could sell that for. So I don't do that. But I keep some form of spiritual practice where I remind myself daily of where I've come from. When I look at this film and I think about, Jesus, I lived that. I lived that. And only through the grace of God, me being born at the right time in 1954, you and I have talked about this before. If I was born just 2 years earlier, my entire life would have been different. I was born during the year Brown versus Board of Education. So because of that, I never, ever sat a day in a segregated school. Do you know the difference that made in the way I thought and felt about myself? I never had to listen to or be in an environment where a school teacher told me or made me feel in any way inferior. Just the opposite. By the time I went to school, my grandmother had taught me how to read. I learned reading the Bible. So by the time I entered school, I was always the first kid raising my hand.
It always amazed me. To me, racism was economically idiotic.
Yeah.
It was stupid. It was
Why?
stupid
Why?
to judge someone on color.
Yeah.
To prejudice is to prejudge.
Yeah.
That's what it means, to prejudge.
Yeah.
Why would I prejudge something?
Yeah, but I understand being a student of the world, looking at not just racism in our country and oppression in other countries, wherever there is someone who is the superior, there's always human nature, the feeling of, I've got to make myself feel like I'm dominant.
Got to kick someone around.
Yeah, I got to kick someone around. And so I understand that, and part of my role is to mitigate that, is to, in my own way, try to open, as I said, open the spaces of people's hearts so that they can see that we're more alike and different. But to answer your question, it feels sometimes, so I'm never not aware of it. And sometimes I have to remind myself. It was funny in that store when the woman said, no, you can't afford this. And finally, instead of causing a scene, you have no idea, I just said, you're probably right. You're probably right. And I turned and walked out of the store. But the truth of the matter is, it is a luxury beyond. What everybody thinks it is, it really is. So I'm not going to be one of those people who say, money doesn't matter. And it is amazing. And I will tell you, I remember the exact first time I was in a store trying to decide, should I get this plate? It was in Tiffany's. and I was buying a pattern of dishes, and I was saying, should I get this one or should I get that one? Should I get this one, that one? And a friend of mine was with me, and she said, can't you afford both? And I went, I can. I can afford both. Oh my God, I can afford both. So the idea of being able to have anything you want and buy anything you want, and not to have that as a worry, because you don't either. So you're asking me, but you don't either.
Not like you, though.
No, but it's all relative. I mean, how much money can you spend in a lifetime? And after you have the house you want, or the houses you want, or the car, or cars, or shoes, or whatever, the square footage you want, and then what? So it puts you in a space, as you know, to think about the broader picture of really why am I here? Because the goal is no longer just trying. I remember when I was just trying to survive. You know, when you're writing a check, not signing your name.
I was on relief as a kid.
Hoping that the gas and electric company would not shut off your...
Cover all the quick things. Is OWN healthy now? Everything okay?
Did you not see the story the other day?
I saw the story. That's what I'm asking.
Okay. Right then.
What took so long?
Oh my God. Everybody, you know, the thing is we're ahead of schedule because everybody said it was going to take me 5 years. And I was under the impression that it was going to be as easy as other things have been. For example, when I started the magazine, they said, you will not see a profit for at least the next 5 years. And we were profitable the first month, the second month, and have been since. And so I thought, oh, okay, those predictions, that is not really true. I had no idea how difficult it would be. However, I am really, there's an old spiritual that says, wouldn't take nothing from a journey now. I really was speaking to Stedman this morning. He was saying, it's a good thing that you went through that because you were living on the mountaintop for the past 25 years. You created this machine of the Oprah show that it just felt like walking into, okay, here we go. So no struggle, no, just, it had become easy for me to do. So to be in a position to build from scratch this network and to go through everybody thinking it was going to fail, and there were days when I had doubts myself, like, I had to force myself to actually practice what I have preached for years about going inside, staying with the vision, having every step move you in the direction of the vision and trusting that, building the right team. It was difficult for some days, and you know, in between takes of this film, I was on the phone with people. You know, I was planning in between takes of this film, on the phone talking to Tyler Perry about coming to OWN and what that would look like and how we would do that and so forth. But it's been, you know, I wouldn't take nothing for the journey.
I can stand nothing but great admiration for you. Treasure all the years we've known each other and bumped into each other. And I wish you the best of everything. And I will tell you, you are great in the Butler. Not good, great.
You know, thank you so much. I just didn't want to embarrass myself. So the fact that you're saying that means I surpassed embarrassment, right?
Great film. Thank you.
Thank you.